Being an educator is one heck of a lonely journey, but every step holds a story, an experience that shapes how we teach, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Educator Experience. I'm your host, Salli Carter, and together we'll explore the moments that define us as educators. Through authentic conversations and shared experiences, we're building a community that connects, reflects, and inspires, all while breaking down barriers in education, one story at a time. You are not alone. Let's grow together. So welcome back to the Educator Experience podcast. I'm your host, Salli Carter, and this is the space where we talk about stuff that other people don't. I'm super excited to welcome back Dr. Joseph Brown. I know him as Joey, now Joey the Spy from another podcast, if you were listening.
I think today we're going to talk about Joey the detective, but yeah, Joey.
Yeah. It's like a choose your own adventure. I love this. Joey the detective today. So just to give the folks a bit of a background about you, I understand that you have a PhD in computer science from the University of Guelph, which is super cool. Love Ontario at the moment. And you've been teaching with TRU for about 3 years. What do you like to do for fun?
My other bit is like board games, video games, stuff like that. So I'm a big gamer. But then the other thing that I like to do, I got a nice garden now. That's one of the benefits of living in Kamloops. I'm on the North Shore in the valley there, so I got pear trees out front, and so I've been messing around.
What else are you growing right now?
I got pears, apricots coming in. In fact, the apricots are so heavy we've had some broken branches this year. Raspberries out the front.
That's not a bad problem to have in life. Our fruit is too bountiful that it's breaking from the
branches.
Woe is us.
I gotta cut those off, Sally. You gotta do a lot of work on them.
That's awesome. Do you bring them in to campus for your colleagues and stuff?
If I've got extra, yeah. Beth and I have been making jam. Yeah. So I gotta bring you some pear jam at some point.
Cool. I like learning new stuff about you. So you were talking about being a detective. Tell us more about that. What do you mean?
So one of my multiple hats, and my supervisor always used to say that being a professor is like having 5 part-time jobs, and I think he was wrong. The number's probably higher. One of my hats at TRU is on the Academic Integrity Committee. So I'm part of the group that everybody loves sending their documentation for student departures to, and we adjudicate the final decision. Well, usually the final decision, because anything higher than a suspension goes up to the president.
This doesn't sound like a place that I would want to work, like a committee I would want to be on. It doesn't sound fun.
It's not a committee that anyone ever really wants to be on.
Were you voluntold?
No, so long ago in the mists of time, one of my first TA jobs at Guelph, when I was in my doctorate, is I was the guy filling out pretty much all of the, I forget what they called it. It was like the not investigator, but they had some goofy name for it. But it was basically a TA that wrote out all of the plagiarism issues, because there was so much of code copying in computer science. They had a lot of people, and the other thing we would get is people copying code off of each other, because they found that really easy. And buying code was another thing. So there was all these websites like Fiverr and all of that type of thing at the time, and they would hire people abroad to basically code their stuff for. Oh yeah. This was a big thing. There was a group in Australia that used to go through and like put up fake ones and then see how many like hits they would get on the stuff.
I did not know that.
So way back in the midst of time, I worked in academic integrity then. And half of my job was like basically going to classrooms and being like, don't cheat. And the other half was then finding everyone. And it's not a fun role. It's a lot of like writing out very legalistic documents. And then when I worked abroad, same sort of thing, right? Like we had one instance of someone actually breaking into a TA's Dropbox, stealing the final exam, and then we had to make an exam like on the way to the university. It was myself and another professor in a cab figuring out what questions we were going to ask them. My TAs actually at one point sent me a picture of me from that day, and you could just see in my eyes like
Panic.
someone isn't living through the day sort of look. But
So
and
it's just
so
followed you around.
yeah, and so I ended up at TRU, and I don't know whether you know Julia Hedge, but Julia's wonderful. She was at the Learning from the Land done by Laura Grizzly Paws here. We were on that same thing, but she was like basically the secretary for the AIC. She works in the student affairs. And she's like, she heard my backstory and she's like, you'd be perfect. I'm like, oh no.
You're the only one.
I said, oh no. And she says,
hunted you.
no, we need you. So she kind of, half arm twisted, half, bodily carried me into the committee. But you know what? It's one of those jobs where I wish it didn't exist, but it has to be done. We're all kind of too tired inside of everywhere with kind of what they call cop shit, right? The idea of the educator in an adversarial relationship with the students, hunting down the cheaters and that sort of thing, proctoring. Proctoring, like the word proctor actually comes from the history of universities having their own police forces, because we were from the ecclesiastical side, right? All professors were priests. And so being in the priesthood, you weren't bound by the local laws. Like if you were in England, you weren't under English law, you were under the priestly law, the ecclesiastical law. And so the universities, since those people were priests, they had to have their own police forces, and those were known as the proctors. So the proctor's office and proctoring an exam, it's policing.
My least favorite thing to do
It
is
is,
just bust
yeah.
people for cheating or like physically in front of me. I've had to have conversations like, I can see you looking at this other person's. No, no, no. And then I'm questioning my whole existence because what I'm saying also
Yeah,
has an impact on their stuff. And I'm like, what if I got something wrong? What if my eyes didn't just see that? It's just a nightmare for
I
my
mean, it used to
brain.
be like the notes on the calculator or like the rolled up thing in
Everything.
the and now today it's like, okay, everybody put your watches at the front of the room.
Yes. Oh,
Everybody
yeah.
take this, like you're carrying the Hitchhiker's Guide to
Everywhere.
the Galaxy with everything on it, Chat GPT now on it, all this. And then it's connected to a little thing like this. And now it's even getting to the point where this is going to be a problem too. We're going to have to start checking people's glasses to make sure. I saw they had an ad for a company that does like a connected thing here. And they said, so you can cheat on exams in the
In their
ad
ad?
on YouTube.
That's a
So
good
they're
ad.
literally advertising it as a cheating device.
I'm gonna use that in one of my marketing classes, I think. I need to find this ad because this is a banger for sure.
Yeah. They were like, oh, you can cheat on exams in casinos and stuff. And I'm like, well,
The amount of stuff that we have to like, it's making my neck tense just thinking about even all the additional stuff that
well,
there is so much to consider, and to be constantly on the lookout. And when you're one person in a class, it's a lot.
it
It's a lot.
it's becoming I wouldn't say it's becoming more prevalent. I think we're seeing maybe the same sort of things. It's just the sophistication is getting larger. Um, it's no longer like, I'm just gonna write the formulas on my arm and hide it under the thing and that. It's now like, a cell phone
Or
is
if it
relatively
maybe
easy to
even
carry.
in their ear or whatever, who knows, right? So many different things. Sometimes I get to the point I'm just like, "Do it." Like, I don't have the brain space to police my class. I
And
just can't.
and one of the ways that we've tried to move around that is via this idea of authentic assessment. So we're moving more to you know, oral exams and things like that, which then penalizes those that, have accessibility issues or not great public speakers. Um, we are moving more to like project-based work, but then now with Chat GPT and the ability to just, create stuff out of thin air, a lot of that is coming in right now. Biggest thing I could say for that is it makes terrible references. So we're not so much, I would say, catching people on the fact that they've fabricated something, like use Chat GPT to create it. We're catching them on plagiarism because the citations are wrong. So it really becomes one of these types of, you're looking for kind of like the output of it in a way.
I'm
And
TAing a class, graduate class, from in McMaster right now, just wrapping up, and it was astounding the lack of citations that were in the majority of papers that I received. And then people thought I was crazy when I was calling them out on it. And what do you mean we have, like, what do you mean you need to, what is happening? What universe am I living in?
yeah,
You need to cite and reference, and here's how, and then you need to do this. Like, you need to tell me where you're getting this information from.
I
And
think
as graduate students, it's particularly important.
I think part of that, Sally, comes from the idea that, like, when we were going through university, and even when we're going through high school, why were we citing? Why were we told we needed to cite?
To give credit.
Yeah. So it was primarily, it was to give credit, right? We can only see because we stand on the shoulders of giants. And the other bit of that was just the academic process and respect for it. That this wasn't seen as something that was odd to have to come up with you don't necessarily have to come up with your own ideas for everything. You can reference, and that is academically respected, the fact that you're referencing. In fact, it gives you more weight to your argument when you are going through and looking at what other scholars are doing, or when you go through and you want to say, oh, well, I've created a new thing. Great, show me everything that exists, or show me like what exists, so that you can make an argument as to why your approach is novel or is built upon some framework that already exists. Because the idea is if you have a solid foundation and then we build upon it, we keep building up and up and up, and our knowledge increases. And we don't really see that today. We see this kind of like, well, I can reinvent the wheel. And it's really, to me, it shows poor thinking skills. It shows poor evaluation skills. It shows um, poor knowledge of what's inside of the field. And we need to respect our fields and what has been done inside of it. Especially I'm working in, game development, AI, all this. There's lots of literature there. And then when I don't see those big names being cited in a paper, I now wonder, have you gone through the process? And I think citations kind of show process. We're kind of in a product driven society, right? I need to make an essay. It has to have this many words. It has to be submitted by this date. And really, as an educator, I could care less about the outcome. I want to see the process. I want to see that they've gone through that. And I think this is something that we've done a very, very poor, all the way from now high school all the way up, where they don't have deadlines, they don't have marks, they don't have any sort of evaluation of the skill set there. And then they're dumped into a university. They're dumped in with probably a sessional in the first year who's just desperately trying to mark 1,400 essays.
Just trying to get through the day.
You're just trying to get through exactly, right?
Yes,
So that
yes.
conversation really doesn't happen. And then they hit the wall third, fourth year where they're expected to put in that paper. And we go, well, why don't you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
And I can respect that to a certain amount. I don't think it excuses it, but I think it is explanatory.
Some of the things, like being on this wild and exciting, fun committee of academic integrity. What's your experience been like for that? What are some things that you're seeing?
Sadly, I'll start off with this. It is a wonderful committee because everybody is actually very dedicated to the principles of academia. When a case comes before us, we do like really look into it. Our normal process is we're giving them about a week before. We go through, everybody goes through the evidentiary package. We look at what the student has written back. The student always gets the last chance to respond and to defend themselves. And it is ones where we are trying as hard as possible to get it right. So, we get a lot of complaints of, we're just rubber stamping anything that comes in from the pest dresser. No, we throw it back lots of times. We'll say, bring us more evidence, or we'll say, and we'll decline it on not having enough or whatever. We're not a rubber stamp at all. So I will say that. The other thing is, it's a fun committee in terms of the people on it. They're very
Goodness.
well, because like we are kind of doing this investigatory, looking at things in depth and etc. There's sometimes disagreements, but we're also, it's one of those friends at the end of the day meetings. So that's really nice of it. The biggest issue right now is we are dealing so much with how many cases that we have and all of that we don't do enough front end. I would rather not have the case to begin with. I would rather that instructors took the time in their own classes to talk about these issues and to prevent them. And a big thing, without divulging too much from the confidentiality, many of the student responses, when they are not just I didn't do it, you can't prove it response, or maybe something like that. A lot of the times is, I did it because ... And the because is usually, I'm overworked. I'm an international student who's working 3 jobs in order to afford this, and I took a shortcut. Or I have this mental issue in my life, or this issue in my life, or my dog died, my cat died. And some of it is maybe just to try to skirt responsibility. I'm not naive enough to think that doesn't happen. But I think a lot of those cases, if we take them at their word, a lot of those cases could have been solved via other methodologies within the university. They could have been solved by talking to the professor beforehand. They could have been solved by going to the student affairs and getting counseling, grief counseling or something, and asking them to, can I get an extension for this, or can I get out of that element and have a delay? Some of them, I see people that are like, well, I use ChatGPT because I don't have reasonable accommodations to my disability. Okay, we have an entire group that's their entire job, is to put forth accommodations and to have that communication with them and do that. So a lot of it, I think, can be dealt with beforehand. Now, there's always going to be somebody that's just going to take the easy way. But for a lot of them, I just see I see so many of it is, I did it because, and then that because is usually something where another piece of the university, another piece of the student services, another piece of accommodation, another piece of talking to a professor could have solved it in the first place. So I think part of that is just communicating with students. Like, I would, and I say this to my students all the time, I will rather sit with you in my office for 3 hours helping you with this thing than have to write a ED50 process form,
It's so much work.
which will easily take me 3 hours. So you're not bothering me to stop this ahead of time, right? Or if you don't understand it. Like, we have a writing center here. All of these supports that didn't exist when I was going through, or to the same levels when I was going through. And all of that is built there in order to facilitate not having to go down the dark path.
I teach a lot of first year courses. So oftentimes I'll have students kind of raise their hand if it's their first day even on the campus, if they
Mhm.
know anyone yet, or if they're just flying solo. And I'll spend the first few classes talking about the different supports, because I think we have a lot of expectations that students read their orientation, or that they attended, or that they received stuff. But I kind of
Did they read the syllabus even?
It was like, you know what? I'm working through my anxiety just to show up today to this first class, not knowing anyone, right? And I respect that. So something that I've started to do is integrating what I view as the most important supports. I do a lot of writing classes. Um, I haven't had to send any students to you yet, thank goodness. But I bring in the writing center halfway through the semester. I bring in the counseling type folks and just
Mhm.
different supports. I do little scavenger things where they have to tell me where the different centers are in the buildings and stuff so that I'm doing my small bit to help them understand what's available because I do think that's really lacking. And I think if it's missed in first year, unless they is an opportunity for them to really be engaged in first year and understand what's available. I don't know if I've had dealt with someone who I've missed an accommodation or was a missed accommodation. That would be tricky. That would be really unfortunate.
Mhm. And I think the biggest thing is that some people don't want to self-identify for those types of
Right. Yeah.
accommodations.
Yeah.
And so then they create methodologies that they're getting, like there was one that I've seen where it was basically an entire essay on how ChatGPT is my accommodation. And that they were in this whole they wrote basically an entire essay to the committee about how uh ChatGPT is an accommodation, here's why. And it just gets back to no, you don't get to choose your own accommodation because it has to be within the boundaries of what is considered reasonable, and that doesn't reduce the standards of the institution. So the key word there is reasonable in terms of it, right? And then the other thing is it giving you an unjust advantage over another student beyond what the accommodation is? So it's different if it's um so the idea here is this was basically taking over their role of thinking was how it was kind of seen, but it's really hard sometimes reading some of these responses because there is those types of responses where it's like, this is how, you know how I'm able to be supported in terms of this, and some of it is downright crazy. um
I'm not sure if students really consider it from the educator perspective, but it is a lot of work, as you said, to flag someone and to go through the entire process and send that plagiarism or whatever the issue is to the next level. I've spent hours at one institution. I was doing some computer
yeah.
classes, and people were copying and pasting but on just on Excel files that we had
Yeah.
mentioned
And
very
it,
clearly. It is just horrible the amount of work. Horrible.
it disrupts the trust too. It disrupts that whole flow of now you have to see them in your class and you're not supposed to treat them any differently, but how can you not? Like there's an implicit bias that's inside of your head now of, well, if they cheated on that test, now I got to watch them more carefully in the next test. Or if they made, they sent me in a chat GPT created essay for assignment one. Assignment two, I'm gonna really look at their references again. um and I mean, is that unfair to have that after someone has violated that trust to you as an instructor too? And I think that's a big thing too, is I think the idea of community around this. um at the end of the day, if you just use ChatGPT to write every single essay, it can get you decently far. It'd probably get you through the first few years of a program. Um, Great. So then you get into those upper years, you've lost all of that thing. You're going to be found out. Even if you make it out with the degree, you're going to be found out as soon as you hit the working world, because not everybody's got ChatGPT, queued in, or somebody's going to ask you a question. You're not going to know the answer. Part of the interviews that always happen inside of any of the jobs in my field is a whiteboard interview where they put you up and they say, okay, write code that does this.
Interesting.
As soon as you grab your phone or whatever, congratulations, you're out the door. You're not going to get hired inside of our industry. Just not going to happen. And you can see all of the issues that this is kind of causing now inside of society. You got lawyers that are being, on the edge of disbarment because they use ChatGPT as their referencing source and makes up stuff. I think you can see how many different YouTube videos or um, writings online are just completely fabricated. And sure, you can have an AI do your YouTube channel for so far, but no one's going to watch it after a while. No one's going to
I
watch
am
something that's inauthentic.
Yeah. I feel like I'm the type of person, I'm always on the hunt as an educator to find the perfect 5-minute or less video on something that can I can share with students. And I have yet to find the perfect APA citation videos. So I am nerding out this summer and I'm going to be creating my own fabulous little videos because I just can't handle the absolute inability of people to do this necessary academic thing properly. Um, yeah, yeah. That somehow people keep getting through, right? People keep getting through.
Yeah, and it can only persist for so long when you're doing that. You're building up a debt. You're building up a knowledge debt that at some point is going to come due, because it's just going to get found out. And the big thing is that at the end of the day, when you cheat, the only person that you're really harming more than anything else is yourself,
For sure.
because you're cutting yourself out of that opportunity to go through that process. And the big thing is education is about, and I don't think we respect this enough, it's about failure. It's about not knowing something and then trying to overcome that gap. And I think we've turned it more into, we've gone too far in terms of everything has to be graded, everything has to be evaluated, everything has to be, and then conversely at the lower years we've gone completely no grades, nothing evaluated, no responsibility, no discipline, nothing. And there's a happy medium between these two that we should be at, where we have an idea of overcoming the standard of that, but we also have the opportunity to explore and understand.
It's really interesting. So it's not the worst committee on the world. It sounds like the people make it fun.
That's the big thing. It's it's one of those things where it's a lot it's a lot of sadness in what we have to do, but it's a lot of dark humor.
I think is there a social committee? I'll sign up for that. I'll avoid that stress, the extra stress that you have.
I I think the biggest thing is it's necessary for the standpoint of protecting not not just the degree, not just the institution and the reputation of the institution. We're protecting the other students. And I think this is something that you see a lot of times too, is when a student looks to their partner beside them and they see them running chat GPT and then they get a better grade, that disrespects the effort that they put in. I'd rather someone with an honest C than a dishonest A. So I think the person with an honest C is in my eyes far more honorable and respectable than the person that got a dishonest A.
Well, this has been such an interesting and enlightening conversation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, what would be your final takeaway that you'd like to leave us with about your experience with academic integrity?
Don't cheat. Don't give me more
Oh,
work.
just don't do it.
Uh,
Don't
I,
do it.
I think a big part of it is communication with the instructor, communication with there's a lot of stuff that faculty have immense power over. There's a lot of stuff inside of our own classes. We have almost plenarily power, right? We have full control over the grades, the thing. We can manipulate all sorts of stuff inside of that. And so when a student is going down that, if they come to me, and say, look, like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, but etc. Great. I can extend deadlines. I can we can even defer grades and do all sorts of stuff, right? Like there's lots of powers that a professor has in their own class. There's lots of support networks if somebody is having issues with accommodations. And man, the stigma on it is not there like it was when we went through, Salli. It's not there. Like it, I think that's part of it is it's a big cultural thing. And I think a big part of this, and I'm sorry, I'm probably continuing on too long. A lot of it, especially from the international students, is coming from that stigmatization of asking for help. That cultural stigmatization of, I should know this. Professor told me I should do this, so I should be able to do it. But that's literally what being a student is that you're someone who needs assistance in order to do the thing. We can't have that expectation that a student is going to be able to, do that thing, but they think that we do. And it comes out of that kind of cultural reverence of like, oh, well, I can't bug them, I can't disrespect them, etc. It's like asking me a question is a sign of respect. And I think that's another thing that we need to, communicate to our students. Asking a question of us is a sign of respect to an educator because it's allowing us to do our job effectively. To kind of like bottle that up and go, well, I can't bother them. How many times have you had a student at your door and you go, well, I hate to bother you. That's the normal thing, right? Oh, and we're like, no, please, I'm in office hours and I'm bored. Right? Like this is why we're here, is we want to see that spark in the student's brain as they get it, that aha moment. That's our way of, feeding our egos and all sorts of things, right? That's our
Really?
our cookie. And so to deny us that is the disrespect.
That's such a perfect way to wind things down. Thank you so much
Yeah.
again for this
Anytime,
epic
Salli.
conversation and wonderful banter. It's been an absolute pleasure. And let's just keep it going. We'll see you again sometime.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of The Educator Experience. We hope you're walking away feeling connected, inspired, and just a little bit more supported on your journey. Ready to go a little bit deeper? Join the Educator Experiences community and check out our courses and workshops specifically designed to support new educators as they navigate the ups, downs, and everything in between. You'll find it all at educatorexperiences.com. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with a fellow educator and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Together, we're building a vibrant community rooted in support and connection. See y'all next Monday.